Welcome to the channel. I'm a doctor. I've seen things that don't always fit into textbooks. Moments that no protocol can prepare you for. Some of these stories are my own. Others were shared with me by colleagues, nurses, paramedics, people who, like me, carry the weight of these moments long after the shift ends. Some stories begin with an accident. Others with unexpected diagnosis. But this one started with a name, when someone thought they had forgotten, until life brought it back on a stretcher. That day, like so many others, the ER was packed. Patients coming in one after another, some with fevers, others in pain, and others just looking for hope. Nothing unusual, at least for us. I was treating a young man with appendicitis, explaining the procedure, the anesthesia, how long he'd need to recover. I told him everything would be fine. Just then, a nurse peeked through the curtain. "Doctor, room 4 is ready. Acute abdomen, Mal about 60. I nodded. By that point in the shift, I'd lost count of how many we'd seen. I stepped away from the current patient and made a quick stop at the nurse's station. Grabbed a cup of coffee, almost cold. Still, I brought it to my lips. That small sip, that brief second of silence. Sometimes that's all we get. The one thing that resets us in the chaos. Because in a hospital, you often only get 10 seconds. To feel human before you have to save someone else. I took a deep breath, set the cup down, and headed to room 4. He was lying there, pale, cold sweat on his forehead. Shallow breaths, rigid abdomen, eyes barely open from the pain, could hardly speak. Extremely low blood pressure, thready pulse. All the signs of a complicated acute abdomen. One look, and you could tell. We don't have much time. I checked his chart. Name, Frank Martin. Age, around 62. Just another name. Just another patient. Or so I thought. I stabilized him as best I could. Ordered stat labs, imaging, started fluids. And admitted him for intensive observation. It looked like surgery would be necessary, so I called in the on-call surgeon. I didn't know it yet, but that call, like so many others, would be the beginning of a story I'd never forget. A little while later, the on-call surgeon arrived. Samuel, a young doctor, but brilliant. One of those rare ones, who see beyond the diagnosis. The kind of doctor who was born for this. Who doesn't crack easily. I greeted him with a nod and pointed to the cubicle. He walked in with his usual calm, picked up the chart, reviewed the signs, the labs, and then he froze. Not dramatically, it's just for a second too long. But in a hospital, that second tells you everything. His eyes locked onto the patient's name. He didn't blink. I saw him press his lips together, then slowly close the chart, like he wasn't sure what to do with it. "Everything okay?" I asked, still unaware of the moment's weight. He took a few seconds to respond. Rubbed his face with both hands. Yeah, He paused again. "I need a moment." He didn't say another word, just turned around and walked out of the room. I watched him go. That wasn't like him. Something was off. A few minutes later, I found him outside, sitting on a bench in a quiet hallway corner, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the floor. I approached cautiously. Was he sick? Was it something else? "You feeling okay? Is everything all right with the case?" He took his time. His voice was barely a whisper. "That patient, Frank Martin," he paused. "He's my father." I froze. "Your father? I haven't seen him since I was 12. He still didn't look up. He left. Just disappeared. Explanation. One day he just never came back. And then he started talking. Not with anger, not even with sadness. It was deeper than that. Like he was pulling memories from a place he had sealed shut for years, you know? When I was a kid, he used to promise he'd pick me up from school, but he never showed. Sometimes I'd walk home alone, or a teacher would feel sorry and give me a ride. And when I got home, I'd find him passed out, drunk, either on the couch or slumped over the kitchen table. That was on the good days, because other times he swallowed hard. He was awake, drunk but awake. screaming, breaking things, throwing bottles at the walls, saying things I didn't even understand. He paused. I stayed silent. Once, I came home crying. Some kids at school bullied me for always being alone. I felt invisible. He saw me crying. I tried to wipe my tears and told him what happened. I thought maybe he'd hug me. He clenched his fists. "Hit me!" he yelled. "That's why you're crying? I'll give you a real reason to cry." I didn't know what to say. I'd never seen Samuel like this. Never imagined he carried something so heavy. And then it wasn't just the violence anymore. It was the silence, the absence. Day he just didn't come back. He stared at the ground, his voice now barely a breath. I always thought if I ever saw him again, it'd be at a funeral. Not in my operating room. That's when I realized this wasn't just a medical case anymore. It was a reunion neither of them asked for, wound the years never stitched until now. I watched him wrestle between being a doctor and a son. There was a storm behind his eyes. "I don't want to treat him," he said. "He doesn't deserve it." His voice was steady, not arrogant. It was the pain of a child who was never heard, now in the body of a man who listens to everyone. What has he done to earn my help? He knew where I lived. He chose to leave. And in all these years, never once looked for me. Never apologized. Nothing. I didn't know what to say, because honestly I understood. Who could look past all that? But I also knew he wasn't that little boy anymore. Not now. He was a doctor, adult. And no matter how deep we bury the past, sometimes it shows up at our door. And what isn't healed gets passed down. It's like a vertical illness. Sometimes the past shows up, even if you didn't invite it. And when it does, it doesn't ask questions. It demands a choice. You either run or face it. And the truth? I wasn't about to tell him what to do. That kind of decision depends on who you are and when you're ready. He sat there quietly. I said, "Don't worry, I'll find someone else to operate. It wouldn't be right for you to do it." He kept staring at the floor. But just as I turned to leave, I heard him say, "No, I'll do it." After a long silence, he stood up. "I'll operate on him." "You sure?" I asked. "I can still get someone else." "You can. But it has to be me." There was no more anger in his voice, just resolution. That night, he walked into the operation room, didn't say a word to his father, no speeches, no confrontation. Just did his job and saved him. The next day I saw him again. He was sitting beside his father's bed, alone. I listened as he explained everything, what they did in surgery, what to expect during recovery. Warning signs to look out for? Frank nodded. He asked a few short, detached questions. When Sam finished, he stood up, started to leave. But then turned back. "Do you remember a boy named Samuel?" Frank looked confused. He was about 8. "The day, as many others, you forgot to pick him up from school. He waited for hours. A neighbor brought him home, but that time was different. That night, he didn't even show." Frank stared at him, still confused. Then Samuel pulled down his surgical mask, stepped closer and said, "That boy was me." I didn't hear what his father said, if he said anything at all. But I saw his hands tremble, and I heard one last thing. Something Sam whispered as he left the room. "I didn't come to blame you. I came to close this, to stop carrying what was never mine to carry. I came to forgive you, because I'm not like you." And he walked out with wet eyes, but at peace. That night, I thought about it a lot. How many burdens we carry that were never ours. How many wounds we leave open, waiting for time to heal them. But sometimes time doesn't heal. It just adds distance. And some pain travels with us, like it's in our blood. That day, I learned something it took me years of medicine to understand. Sometimes, what heals most isn't a scalpel or a drug. It's the courage to look the past in the eye and say, "This ends here." If you've ever carried something that wasn't yours to bear, or if you've been trying to let go of something from your past, remember this. It's not always about forgetting. It's about releasing, about healing, so you can move on. Thanks for staying with me until the end. If this story moved you, or remember any story similar to this one, feel free to share it with us in the comment. Every story we tell echoes somewhere. And sometimes, that's exactly what someone needs to hear. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Till then.